A light. Yes, Zach. Whatever you might move, that's it. Thank you. All right. I think we're ready to call to order the special session. We're going to adjourn directly into executive session, and we will be doing that as follows. Section 551071, consultation with attorney by telephone and/or in person concerning matters upon which the attorney has a duty and/or responsibility to report to the governmental body, including but not limited to discussion regarding system availability, water contract, and/or other matters posted on the regular agenda. Also, Section 551074, personnel matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties of Assistant City Manager, and other personnel matters as allowed by the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will adjourn into executive session. We are back from the executive session. We're going to, there were no items that we need to take action on, so we will adjourn the special session. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We will take a short 5-minute break between this session and the workshop session, so if you'll give us just a few minutes, we'll be right back. Okay, let's call to order the workshop session. First item will be discussion and updates related to COVID-19 pandemic. Chief Smith.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The numbers regarding COVID across the state are not good this evening. We continue to see an increase in positive cases and hospitalizations. 1 month earlier, we had 21,000 active cases across Texas. Now we have 60,000. So we've had a huge increase. The total number of patients hospitalized has also gone up accordingly. We're at 4626 now. In Trauma Service Area L, we're at 127. That's above 10% of the patients. So we're way up from our 3% that we were looking at earlier. As far as here in Lampasas County, we have reported new cases today of 9, or this was actually Friday. We had one more that was actually reported today, so we're at 10 active cases right now in Lampasas County. And that's from Region 7. We have 3,971 completely vaccinated people in zip code 76550. There's 4,687 who've had at least one vaccine. Doing quite a bit of research as far as what they think that probably around 80% of all the new cases are the Delta variant. They say that it's a very aggressive form of the COVID-19. Still trying to figure out quite a bit as far as what makes it such a strong inhibitor of opposed to what the other Delta or the other COVID original form was, but still not a lot as far as that. They are reassuring everybody that, hey, if you've been vaccinated, you should be good with it. We have actually had some breakthrough cases on that, meaning people that have been vaccinated that have been tested positive and have suffered some of the symptoms of it, but they say that as long as you're just suffering symptoms of it, you're okay as long as you're not hospitalized. So I wish I had more good news to present to you, but that's what I have for right now. The last thing I'll leave with you on that is they say the best way to deal with the new variant is be sure and get your vaccination. Other than that, I don't have anything to offer you at this time. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir. I was wondering, when we find the new cases, because they've talked so much about this Delta variant, do they test to find out if it is or isn't Delta? Or do they not break that down like that?
I'm not sure exactly how they're doing all that. They don't give me a report that says these many were Delta variant, this was the old style COVID. All I get is the number of new active cases, and that's from Region 7. As far as CDC will tell you that the latest figures show that the testing of it proves out that across the nation, that's the nation, that it's above 80% as far as all new cases are the Delta variant.
So, like, I know that Austin had to jump to level 4 because, with the masking, and they want even people that are vaccinated to mask. But we're not in that region, we're in the other region, correct?
Yes.
Do you know what level we're supposed to be at?
No, I don't have that assigned here. As far as looking at the state, the governor's website, he's pretty much made the promise and held true to the fact that the state is not going to invoke any type of shutdowns or any type of orders that come out asking you to mask up. I can tell you from around town, there's a number of businesses that have asked you to please wear a mask again. I think that that's well within their ability to do that, and I think that that's a great attribute as far as those businesses doing that. I don't see the state coming out and mandating anything like that. So
No.
I think it's all going to be left up to personal businesses as far as what they want to do.
Right, I
And
think we
that
all
that's
just
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
need to do what we think is right for us. And
Yes.
if that involves a mask, then so.
I think that if we continue to be vaccinated, if you feel like you want to wear a mask, CDC says if you have been vaccinated, you really don't even need to wear a mask anymore. You can, unless you test positive, and then if you've tested positive, even if you've been vaccinated, you do need to stay away from others. So,
Any other questions, comments?
all right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item is discussion and presentation from Derek Barrios, Lampasas County Higher Education, LCHEC.
Thank you.
Hi.
Good afternoon. I'm Derek Barrios, Director of the Lampasas County Higher Education Center. I'd like to thank the City Council and Mayor Monroe for inviting me here today. LCHEC, like many of our local businesses and institutions, had a major setback in March of 2020 when we were forced to close due to the coronavirus pandemic. LCHEC was closed from early March until early May. Prior to the shutdown, we had 2 active allied health classes in session, as well as our GED Prep and CTC Central Texas College courses being held at LCHEC. The shutdown effectively forced 75 students at that time to suspend their learning. In late May, we were allowed to reopen by the Texas Workforce Commission, and we resumed those courses and were able to get the students that perform externships out to their externships and complete the course fully. However, CTC has yet to return to LCHEC. I've been told that they will be returning late August, but they have not resumed classes there. They have not resumed the GED class, which we find to be very important for the community. So hopefully they will keep their word and they'll be back in August, and I can report something great to you in the near future. During that time frame, we had lost 2 instructors. All of my instructors are healthcare workers. I don't necessarily hire retired healthcare instructors. I hire people who actively work in the field. So we lost some of them due to the large amount of hours that they had to work. We actually had one that tested positive, not while working at the facility, but that resulted in her having to leave us. We have been able to replace both of those instructors this year, so that's some good news. And once again, I have hired healthcare professionals. As a matter of fact, one works at Rollinsbrook, and the other works at Darnell Medical Center, Fort Hood. So we've been able to get some good people back in here. We have been able to survive this stretch and intend on continuing our mission to provide high-quality workforce training and education in Lampasas. Over the past 10 years, LCHEC has provided training, community education, and higher education to a broad cross-section of our community and region. In 2010, since 2010, we've had over 1,000 Central Texas College students come through LCHEC. We've had over 650 local and regional students go through our allied healthcare training programs and our IT program, with an average starting wage of $13 an hour and climbing. 535 students have attended our adult education courses. We currently have a partnership with Advent Health where we offer free yoga at LCHEC twice a week. And we have provided over 730 children since 2012 with educational and entertaining summer courses as part of our College for Kids program. Now this year we thought we were going to have to cancel that because we usually schedule that in February, and we didn't know where things were going in February of this year, and we would hate to lose that program. Luckily, CTC, being that they had pulled out in other courses, decided that they wanted to swoop in at the last minute and provide us some financial support, And with the help of Lampasas Fire Department and the Police Department, we were able to offer 2 courses. We had about 2.5 weeks to advertise them, when we normally advertise over 3 weeks, over 3 months, sorry, and we had 30 kids show up, which we found to be very successful, and that was completely paid for by Central Texas College. It's the first time they've ever compensated us for anything that we do at LCHEC in partnership.
Good for them.
Moving forward, we actually have started negotiations with them to pay a portion of the rent that we pay to the LISD. So that's currently in negotiations. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up high because we've negotiated for 10 years. But I think they have a new dean there, and I think the possibility of some compensation is there. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'd like to remind our fellow citizens the other opportunities that we provide here besides the GED program. We also have partnered with the Texas Workforce Commission to provide internship opportunities at LCHEC, as well as being a conduit for those in search of an internship. So I can qualify them at LCHEC. We get a lot of people coming through just asking for various things that we might not necessarily do, but now I have a partner where I can point them for an internship program through the Texas Workforce Commission that the Workforce Commission completely pays for. Our goal is to make sure that those that worked hard and completed their training have all the support they need to find employment. We also, besides working with the Texas Workforce Commission, we have job boards. We just, with the assistance of the, actually, we assisted the EDC in putting on the job fair at LCHEC, and we've done that for several years. I think maybe there was 1 or 2 years we didn't do it, but we were very thankful to have that there, and we would like to continue to host the job fair at LCHEC. Right now, in terms of my students that I'm graduating out, I have, for 2 of my courses, and these are the highest numbers we've had, I have 90% employment on my clinical medical assistants and on my nurse aides. We've never reached those benchmarks. We've been somewhere between 70 to 80% on average. There is a higher demand, and I now have 2 instructors for several of the courses so that we can double our offerings, so that we can meet the demand. Before I go, I'd like to thank the City Council and Mayor Monroe for the opportunity to speak here. We ask for your continued support in the form of the contribution that we have asked for in the past of $8,500. Without the support of the county, the city, the LEDC, and the overall community, it would be close to impossible to provide the variety of services and programs we offer at an affordable cost. Thank you for your past and continued support. And are there any questions?
Anyone have any concerns or questions? Thank you so much, Derek.
Thank you
We
for your time.
appreciate you coming.
Appreciate it.
Next item, a discussion regarding a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lampasas approving the resolution of board members of the Lampasas Economic Development Corporation authorizing an economic development project and a loan in the amount not to exceed $1.5 million, a sales tax remittance agreement between the city and the corporation, resolving either matters incident and related to the loan, and the authority of the mayor to execute on behalf of the city a general certificate of the city and the sales tax remittance agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Finley has a map of the business park that shows the Phase 1 development. I think you each have one in your packet, but I think Becky may have printed out larger versions for you as well. So we're here, let me move this down a little. EDC is seeking approval of a resolution, as she said, authorizing an economic development project and a loan in the amount of $1.5 million for the development of Phase 1 of the business park. This, as most of you know, I think some of you were on council, some of you were part of the city. The land was purchased for the business park back in 2004. In 2015 is when they extended the utilities to the business park. In the last 18 months, we've spent engineering the project, and now the EDC unanimously approved the loan to move forward with this project. The project scope itself, if you notice on page 15, it shows what the probable construction costs would be. This is, curb and gutter, road, drainage, water and wastewater, and that's what we're looking at developing for that Phase 1, which encompasses approximately 35 to 40 acres, give or take a few acres, to develop. Just as a reminder, this project is fully funded by the EDC, but City Council approves economic development projects as well as appoints our board members. And like I said before, our board members unanimously approved this project, and they've worked tirelessly for many years on it. So we're excited to be at this point. I will tell you, we receive RFIs from the governor's office on a weekly basis, and they're all looking for acreage. And currently, as it stands, we don't have, aside from the business park, there's nowhere to put someone that's looking for even 2 to 5 acres within the city. So we're really having to pass up on some possible prospects because we don't have the land and we're not fully developed to a point where someone can move in and start building and start operating their business.
Mandy, I've had several questions from the council as to what kind of businesses you're getting inquiries from. Can you help us there a little bit?
We have we've got manufacturing, light manufacturing, technology. There's retail as well that's looking for several acres. Healthcare.
So a variety.
A wide variety, but it also fits in that phase 1 development where we have defined certain zones of low intensity, medium intensity, and high intensity. So this first phase 1 encompasses that low intensity to medium intensity. So it's a light manufacturing, but your offices, your technology businesses, those type of things. It's not going to be your high-end manufacturing business that would go in the high intensity on the southern portion of the business park.
Do you have a list of those names of people that have contacted you from the governor's office?
I have a list of the projects. The names are confidential.
Okay.
They give it if it comes from the governor's office, it's confidential until the business is ready to give out the name of the company. So most of them, it can tell you the type of business, but it won't. It's named Project. I think the latest Project Avocado Toast, or Project Cedar, or they give it a name because it's confidential until the time that they're ready, until they choose a site and they're ready to start building and developing.
So how do you, once you get this thing built here, how will you know how to go and recruit these individuals? Will you just say that, hey, I've got some land available here, come look, and who do you talk to?
Sure, we will talk, the governor's office will know where our land is, so when they start receiving the prospects and businesses that are interested, they'll have that information. We'll have marketing tools that we'll be able to send out into different industries, and there's different magazines and different ways to put our information for the business park and how we market it and promote it that site selectors and developers are actually looking at. So we'll start marketing it that way, but we'll also go through the governor's office once we start developing that phase 1.
And just kind of clarify for me, because I'm coming in, I'm a new kid on the block here. It's the total business park here is 156 acres. Is that correct? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yes, it's a little over 150 acres.
And we've had this for 20 years.
They purchased it in 2004.
And why are we just now coming around to this right now?
We feel confident. I've only been here since 2017, but we feel confident we're at the point that we can fund the development of a portion of this business park now, and we also have the interest. Like I mentioned before, we don't have other land to offer a prospect coming into the city right now. Do you want to speak on that too?
And really probably Neil or Roland, Steve, even Misty might provide a better answer. And I think it was a matter of waiting for the project that we could use to leverage either CAP funds or enterprise funds from the state. I think there was always the hope that the software company that went to Belton, when they looked at us, you know, could we utilize that business? Could we utilize a food manufacturing business to leverage some funds to extend utilities? And finally, and I think in 2015, finally we said, you know what, we got to do something. We got to take that first step and get utilities to the site. And I think what the board would tell you, and I'd sure defer to them, is that, you know, now this is the next step. People aren't looking for a site that they're going to have to wait 9 or 12 months at the soonest to get utilities to. They're looking for a site that they can go and develop, or that has the opportunity. I think there may be also some interest for some speculative building out there. And if that's the case, somebody can pick up the phone and say, I'm ready to go. Okay, within 30 days we can get you in this building. But I don't know if I've spoken out of turn.
The gentleman behind me have been around longer than I have. I've been on the EDC board since, I think, 2014, 15. At the time, we started revving things back up. The reality of the situation is the land was acquired. They set forth what they wanted to do. At that time, there was not even a director for the EDC. It was just a board, kind of like our other advisory committees. Economic development within the city of Lampasas, everybody can look at and see that's something to be proud of. We're at the point where the demand is there. We're at the point where our sales tax revenue, that the portion that the EDC board gets, is enough that we feel confident as fiscally responsible individuals that we can make the payments towards this development. There is no reward without risk. Several projects within the city of Lampasas have the notorious moniker of takes forever. We talk about it, we talk about it, we talk about it, it falls asleep, we forget about it, and then it comes back around. The EDC board has never stopped talking about this. It's just been a matter of when do when do the stars align? And right now they're ready to go. And this board is ready to go. And we get requests that we can't, respond to because we don't have inventory in terms of marketable land. What we do have is not what they want. They need something now. And, if you start driving south, it's coming towards us. They're going to divert and go a different direction if we don't have somewhere for them to go.
And what kind of time frame do you have on this? Do you have any idea?
You have your notes on time frame?
We haven't put together the bids for the construction yet, so it would all determine once we have, we're waiting our engineers putting together the bid package for us. And
I commend you guys. I love the concept here. I think you're on the right track.
I apologize, I didn't even mention my board a few of my board members are here as well. As you know, the mayor is also a board member, but they're here for questions as well if you'd like.
Mayor, go ahead, Steve.
I think I've been on the board just nearly since it was developed. Years and years ago, people would come to Lampasas. They would look at Lampasas to move a business here. We had nothing to offer. Zero. Maybe an acre here, maybe an acre there. We stepped out on a limb, was it 2004, and bought this land. And our revenue was all it could take was to make that land payment. And we have since kind of got another one to kind of get some utilities, what have you, out there with the city. And now we have got it such that our sales tax can pay for this. We will have a product. Someone comes in, they say, what have you got? We can show it to them and say, this is what we've got. And
Let me ask you one more question, Steve. Is there going to be, are you guys going to incentivize this?
we're going to look at everything. Mandy is the director on that. If somebody can bring in, what's the word, Neil? Jobs? Primary jobs. It's an economic impact. If they can come in with primary jobs with a wage and they can guarantee it, we would work with them on what we're able to offer them.
There's a matrix that the board has developed for criteria. So you have to meet a certain criteria before we're in the business of incentivizing what you're going to do. And that criteria all has to be to the benefit of this community. So to say, yes, we'll incentivize, it is more of, if you meet our criteria, we'll consider incentivizing you. Right now, we don't have don't even know where to put them for a business to come to offer an incentive to.
Right, but as a plan going forward, and we know somebody, for instance, in San Antonio, they want to relocate to Lampasas to get out of the big city. What would you tell them that they were coming to Lampasas for? What would be the incentive? Would it be that they needed 10 employees, they needed to have, $500,000 a year in payroll tax? And what would that look like?
I'm sure Mandy can present to the board or provide to the council members what our packet looks like that you have to complete.
So you do have a
Yes, they have
package
to provide,
altogether?
yes, and there's
Okay.
a signed agreement, and there, there's an agreement that has a clawback. So it's not, we just don't give them money.
Okay.
We just don't give them free land. You have to,
Basically, they have to go through the impact study that Mandy does to show if it's worth it.
Right.
Microphone, guys.
Capital investment, primary job creation, there's several things that are weighed out and scored, as well as an economic impact study and how the impact would be on our community. And just one other thing, when you mentioned marketing, I wanted to note, we have joined several groups. One of them is the Texas Economic Development Connection, and they actually bring us site selectors that are looking for land. So we're involved with several different groups, economic development groups around the state that bring us different prospects in addition to the governor's office and any other outreach that we do on our own.
I think Mr. Clark had a question.
I have several for one. 3 years ago, about when I came on the board, we had a joint meeting with the LEDC, and we agreed that we needed to get the ball rolling. We either needed to develop it or sell it. And we thought developing it, I'm kind of like the mayor and I talked one day last week, I don't want to see 300 homes out there. I'd rather see, several businesses. I worked for the city when we bought that thing, when Mr. Talbot was here, and the plan had not been developed at that time, and I know the matrix has at this point. I was concerned that all we'd be able to do is, and all they wanted to do up front was try to invite industry. But now I understand it's a business park. It's multifaceted in the type of businesses we can come in, and I think that's a much better approach for the city of Lampasas. I, for one, have used that example to talk about several different things here of lack of types of businesses that we have that could come in. I also wanted and I asked the mayor if we could get a brief overview from Finley of the relationship between the council and the EDC in regards to how the bylaws are set, just for information for all of us. People wonder why we're approving things and why we're involved in this, or is it strictly autonomous on y'all's part and all of those things. I understand it better, but we have some people who don't, and I thought this would be a perfect time for everybody to ask those questions. I asked the mayor if we could. This phase one that we have here is, you said it's zoned in different areas for different types of businesses. This part would be like multi-use, smaller type, light industrial. I don't know about retail, but
That's correct.
I mean, I've talked to you a couple of times in regards to this, and I just think the council is unsure at this point what everybody's jobs are and what our responsibility are. And I asked Finley if he would, with y'all, to address that to the council.
before Finley does that, as a former on that side of the dais person, I want to encourage you all. Not only are the minutes from all EDC meetings available to you to research the exhaustive amount of time that we've spent discussing how to handle this project, that's available as a tool to you to educate yourselves on the project, but please come to the meetings. That's a resource for you as well. We welcome you. Now the council only has one board member on the EDC board. So two of you could be in the attendance of the meeting and not worry about quorum. Maybe get with Becky and make sure that nobody else is attending. Sometimes we're there a long time, and it's not always easy answers, and we don't take anything that we do lightly. And there's not a single one of us, and if you look back at them, I don't think you're going to see a few men that spend $1.5 million easily.
Well, I was one of the first ones that said, let's move forward with this, and I do support the 1.5 million and getting the utilities in there, because we'll never go forward if we don't.
Agreed. You can't have progress standing still.
But I think it makes everybody feel more comfortable if we understand exactly the relationships.
As far as the land use, Randy, when we first bought this property, we looked at it. Hargrove was working with us then. And we kind of looked at it in thirds. And the lines kind of can move a little bit, where we've got light density, medium density, and then maybe some heavy industry. Heavy industry being farthest to the south, away from the highway, because the highway frontage and everything, of course, we know is the most lucrative for these businesses. Heavy industry, they really don't need it. And that area is in our phase 2. Our phase 1 is up toward light and medium density, with access off, as you saw, access off the highway and access off it's no
Yes.
longer a county road. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I permitted that first entrance.
Yeah.
And really had to fight with the
We had
state
to fight.
to get that done.
That's
And
right.
we've got a 4-lane entrance permitted with the state. I don't know if this other entrance that shows on this development is permitted with them or
The second entrance on phase 2 is permitted. I believe that's where we have an access cut.
well, now we put in the original curbing and
Yeah.
we seal coated
That's-
across
that's
the
a-
right of way.
That's a phase 2 entrance.
Well, that was the only one that I know of that was permitted at that time. It was very hard to do because it's 70 miles an hour right
Yep.
there. I asked about they wanted 700 feet of clear eyesight in both directions. I've talked to them about the possibility of a turn-in lane or a center turn lane. It may be more feasible now since they're doing the highways like they are. But we show this on the development, and I'd sure make sure before we start in on the development that they allow this secondary entrance that you show developing first.
The one you put in is the phase 2 entrance.
But the one that you're showing on this map,
Our engineers have been working with TxDOT on all of it, and we've been assured that it will be permitted when the time comes.
that's great, because I was afraid that it wasn't.
Yeah, no, we haven't. We've been working with them right up front.
Because it is on that hill, and I'm worried about the sight distance and them saying no.
Correct. But they've also talking about maybe reducing the speed limit in that area.
I asked them to consider that, but that takes about 3 or 4 years.
Steve, where's the utilities going to come in from?
Pardon me?
Where are the utilities going to come in from? Are they going to come in?
They're
from where we
already,
put it-
they're already on the corner
on
of
the
the
county
site.
road? Okay,
Y'all ran wastewater for the high school,
yeah.
and it kind of hit the north.
Coming through the
So we don't have to go across the road yet then, correct? That'll be phase 2?
Pardon me?
That'll be phase 2 where we go across the highway?
No, I
Or will
think
it always go up the county
way I
road?
understand it, everything's right here on the corner. Water, wastewater, and power.
So it'll go all the way to 183, whatever development you do, from back there?
Our phase 1, we'll run it throughout this area.
Will it be a loop line,
Eventually,
but not in this phase 1?
see, we have water running right here now, we have wastewater running right here, and we have power running all right here.
But
And,
as we develop it,
The water will be looped, because I see it's running right here as well. have a looped water system
That's good.
on this phase one. We decided not to plat these lots, even though we've got them on this drawing. We're not gonna just automatically plat them, because if someone wants to come in and we have a 4-acre lot and they want 7 acres, well, then we have to kind of bounce around and, you know, but this is, and then this is phase two.
And Mandy, if you would, I would like to see the city council and the EDC board meet every year. I know it's been kind of random in the past, but I think it'd be good for us all to be on the same page.
Yeah. And to give you a little history with this piece of property, before we bought this piece of property, the LEDC, we walked another piece of property. We had a contract on that piece of property, provided we could get by the environmental. Well, our biologists went out and they found the golden cheek warbler and the black-capped vireo. So that kind of threw us out of that piece of property. We found this one. That old piece of property is now Sunrise Hills.
Right.
Yes, I remember that. The key to that is he put cows on it.
Yeah, private developers don't have to do the environmental that the government has to do.
Are there any other comments, questions?
One other thing I was going to mention about when you were asking about prospects is a lot of R&D facilities as well. So in addition to technology, there have been R&D, and that would fit in our medium intensity. We have had a lot of food processing plants that have been some of the governor's request prospects. So we've had a wide variety.
I'm really excited about it. I think you guys are on the right track on this.
The EDC board's very excited about it as well. I mean, as I've said, they've worked very hard for this for a long time, and we feel very confident we're at a point now that we have something to offer prospects, and so I think we're all pretty excited. So.
Are you thinking moving, I mean, you're gonna move ahead with it, but there's no time frame as of right now?
We will discuss with our engineer when we'll have the construction documents ready, and then we'll come back, I assume, with the bidding package. You want to talk to that?
Finley?
You want to speak to that time frame?
Would you address our relationship, just for everybody up here?
Sure. Yeah, I think the time frame right now is predicated on that 60-day notice that we gave. We published that. That 60 days will be up, I believe, August 23rd, because according to the Development Act, which rolls in to answer Councilman Clark's question, requires us to give 60 days public notice in the event that anybody wants to protest that. They can do that by, getting 10% of the last governor's race, I believe, on a petition. But we don't anticipate that happening. So that's the first time frame. I think secondarily, we want to make sure that the engineering docs and the construction docs are dusted off and updated, and any final things. But I would say that we probably have, and Derek would probably admit, we have a 95% plan set. So it shouldn't take too long to get that up. My guess is the bidding is going to be probably a 45-day process. And I can't answer this question as well as Steve can, but my gut tells me it's probably a 270-day project. So, weather permitting, but if that gives you any kind of idea. So I think you're talking about a year.
About a year, yeah.
By the time that we're funded, construction docs, bidding, award, and from there.
And the only reason I ask, you can go out and pre-sale these lots as you're gonna begin the construction phase and start bringing people in and give them some time frames and saying, a year from now or 180 days from now or whatever it is.
I may be a little overly optimistic, but I would suggest that when we put a blade out there to start moving dirt, our phone's going to start ringing.
Yeah.
I agree. And to address Councilman Clark's question regarding the relationship, and just so that the council is aware, and of course the state, through the local government code and the Development Act within that code, kind of defines the relationship that economic development corporations and city councils have. And just as the title of it suggests, they're a separate and independent corporation. They can borrow money, they can sign contracts, they can hire staff, they can sell land, they can buy land. The relationship with city council kind of as their oversight, or as not really oversight, but as a check and balance. City council has the authority through the statutes to appoint their board members and approve projects. And so, by and large, what you're doing tonight is approving a project. So even if EDC had the $1.9 million in the bank ready to go, their money, EDC's money, they would still have to come to City Council for you to approve the project that they're undertaking. That's a pretty basic rundown, Councilman Clark. Is there anything else I can address?
I've had several questions back and forth with some members of the council, a couple of members of the council, and I wanted to make sure they were a little hesitant up front.
Sure.
But the city's not necessarily on the hook for this thing. It's the sales tax revenue
Correct.
that pays for it.
Correct. It's not like you're co-signing a loan. The city's, basically what the EDC is, this note is pledged on is the sales tax revenue.
Right.
It's not even, we don't even have a note, or the land is not even collateralized. Yes, correct. Correct, the EDC's portion sales tax.
The city has no responsibility for the loan.
Right.
Okay, is that
Thank you.
everything?
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys coming and giving us all that information.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion and presentation of the Lampasas County Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center fiscal year 21-22 budget. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Council. Thanks for having me this evening. So the explanation that's provided in your packet was for the last 3 years, and what it does is it explains the budget a little bit more in detail as regarding to the line items. And if you'll notice in the evaluation, there are only a few areas and line items that have been increased. Most of them stayed the same. And I will say that they stayed the same because when I did the budget for the 2020-2021 budget timeframe, it was during the COVID year. And so we were not bringing in as much income. And even though it came in at the amount, the $43,000 amount, we are on track to report in less than that this year because we did not do several of the items that were initially slated for that budget. So if there are any questions in regards to the different line items, I'll take those at this time.
I might just mention to our new guys that the chamber is also our visitor center. I don't know if you were aware of that. We do fund that 40% of their expenses as the visitor center. And we think they're doing a good job with getting all the people information about Lampasas when they come through. So that's what you're going to see when some of the information is broken down as to
Operating.
their operation over here. The 40% would be for our portion of the visitor center expenses.
Yes, ma'am, that's a great explanation of our relationship, and we will actually be visiting the agreement again, I apologize, visiting the agreement again when I come back in August for barbecue, so we can look over that a little bit more with a fine-tooth comb. But then I also wanted to make everyone aware that we too were shut down from a visitor perspective for about 5 months last year, and so we just opened that up this year, starting, I believe we started that in April of this year. So we're open on Saturdays now as well. And we had 40 people in our center last week alone, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but we are seeing huge exceeding numbers of travelers coming through. So whether that's to our events or to the visitor center, I can give a breakdown as I do at my quarter or biannual reports for visitors and memberships and so forth. So that is on my next, in October when I come, you'll see all those breakdowns as well. And
I'd
so that'll
appreciate
kind of help
that.
explain the data.
Right, that would be good. Do we have questions?
Yes, ma'am. I was just curious. Okay, so how much, a membership is what, $200, right?
It's 200 for a business, 75 for a second business, 100 for nonprofit, 100 for ranch, and then 50 for an individual.
And what do they actually get for this membership?
So we have a list of benefits, whether it be networking, newsletter, promotion and support of their events, the ability to, there's a huge list of benefits that can be found on our website in 3 different categories in support of those businesses and promotion.
Anything else?
I have only one reservation on the administrative fee, and they're asking for a 3%. I don't know where that stands with what we're going to be able to do in regards to city staff.
When, is it next month or soon you're going to give us the contract to read over so we'll understand that?
The agreement's actually in the packet itself for how we do this each year, but yes, we are going to be revisiting the actual agreement at the next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
I want to put on my Bob McCauley hat for a minute, but it would be easier on you to receive a lump sum for your event cost and then break that out periodically of what the bills are, rather than us having to go through it every event that you have.
Are you
We've
talking
talked
about
that
for
in the
hot
past.
funding, Chuck?
Yeah, we've talked about the hot funds.
We have, I mean, that's
just
essentially
something
what
that-
I do for the budget as well, and I've made it so I only come to council twice a year now to report those funds, but I do come every time I need to request. So we've kind of streamlined that process a little bit, but in regards to the budget and operating, I come twice a year, and then hot funding, I do come per event. So to answer your question, those are 2 different things, but we
Right,
could do it the same way.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Clark, to answer your question in the administrative line, what you'll notice on there, and it does say a 3% salary increase, and that is for my salary because I have not received a raise in over 3 years.
I understand that, and
Okay.
I'm not saying that I'm
Sure.
objecting to that. I think you do a lot for what you get paid to do.
Sure. Thank you.
And I'm not saying that that's out of line. I'm just saying that we haven't entered that phase of the budget for our own staff. And I just have concerns that when you talk 3% versus the amount that if you multiplied your salary with the 3%, that's not a lot of money. But the 3% gives an indication to staff a little different perspective.
Sure, and that was because of a hiatus that I did not receive a raise for the 3 years prior. But then also, we are finding the additional funding through the Chamber of Commerce for the total of the raise.
And I'm not saying that you don't
And
deserve it.
I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
I would commend you for trying to keep most of this exactly the same,
Thank you, sir.
and I can appreciate that.
We didn't have much to go on, over the past year, so it was really hard to estimate what we would be needing. But again, we were very resourceful last year, and rightfully so. So
I have
hopefully-
one other question in regards, it's just for my information. What is the passport program?
So the Passport program is Texas Trails, and we actually, funny you bring that up, we have had an agreement with the Texas Trails program for over 3 years, and it's something Mandy and I need to discuss. We just haven't had time prior to this meeting. There was an agreement signed with this program where the city was doing half of the arrangement, but again, Mandy and I have to look further into that, where the city would pay for a portion of it and the Chamber and Visitor Center would pay for another portion of it. And what it is, it's a passport book that visitors come through to all the different visitor centers. There's probably about 15 in the book, and they get it stamped, and it gives a little synopsis of what Lampasas has to offer, and so we can write that content But we've had quite a few people in recently. I thought it was going away. I thought it was kind of dying, and it was been proving me wrong this last month.
Good.
But I can get more information on that.
Okay,
So-
I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
like
it's a
400
passport book.
It's $400 in the budget,
Yeah.
and I didn't know.
And I think, to be honest with you, and that's 400 at the 40%, well, it might be 100% for that, but the whole program itself is a 3-year program, and it's over $1,000 some dollars, so
Anything
we
else?
have to evaluate.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you.
Next up is discussion regarding fiscal year 21-22 budget rollout. Finley?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll be referring to the slides that are included in your packet and also on the screen. We just want to get started. This is giving us the opportunity to really take a look at a lot of the different impacts that we've had in 20 and 21, including the winter storm, the grid disruption, the activity in terms of development and housing, workforce availability issues with local business, building material market. I think the good news is that, is our goal to at least roll out to you a budget that was balanced, and I think we've done that. There's still, a lot of work that goes on the staff level as we fine-tune some of these numbers. In most cases, we challenge our staff to make sure that these numbers are as sharp as they can be, and while still accounting for a conservative revenue stream. We have based our budget on continued growth, but on a very conservative basis, as well as the premise that the stabilization of the Texas electric grid won't impact us like it did in FY21. So just some budget notes or starting points that we want to review with you. And in fact, when I talk about projected year end, that's typically something that we would use in years past almost like a tool, where we would anticipate what savings we would have, what sort of surplus we were looking at, and when we had a surplus of some magnitude, we could then translate that into some accelerated purchases. Regardless of where we end up at the end of this year, which I think we're not as fine-tuned as we have been in previous years for a number of reasons. It's certainly not our position that we're going to recommend any accelerated purchases before the end of this fiscal year. We certainly, our projected year end is impacted by some of the activity at the ERCOT board in terms of some settlement of some disputes. Those charges that I think I indicated to council have been positively resolved in some of our wholesalers' favor, which we think will translate onto the city of Lampasas as a consumer. We also could potentially be impacted in a positive way by the COVID-19 CARES Act relief. We've seen some what I would consider vague guidance on some of those funds that they're allocating now. If you're a city over 50,000 in population, you've already got your check in the bank. If you're under 50,000, they kind of have been holding on to it, not really sure how they're going to provide guidelines for us. We do know that at least in some cases, we will be able to use those funds for water, sewer, maybe broadband projects if we have something like that, as well as addressing the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The reason I'm bringing all these up is because we have to put all of this stuff into the mix when we try to figure out what we'll have to finish the year out, as well as what we will have to match our future needs. So this has been a little bit more challenging than just trying to figure out, hey, we're going to sell this much electricity and this much water, and our tax base is going to produce this much in ad valorem, et cetera. So a lot of different things going on. And the legislature, of course, has given us some cause for concern as well as some cause for hope. The two next blocks, I think it's something that we would certainly put forward for council consideration. I don't think staff is in a position to advocate one way or the other, but I do want you to take a look, particularly as we get into more detail on our budgets in the water, wastewater budget, maybe as in particular the electric budget. You know, what are those ongoing capital costs, and how do we match the ongoing capital costs with our revenue? And is there a way that makes sense or that council would prefer to consider, rather than, you know, a lot of times in cities you're so adverse to raising fees that you wait until you have to raise them 10 or 15%. And that's solely at the council's discretion. But, you know, council, what we would encourage council to do is, let's say, okay, we've got, for example, some tank maintenance that's going to be needed in the Hughley tank and on the Georgetown tank. This is an approximate dollar amount. That's what it means to the customer if we did it all at once. You know, do we take little bites out of that over a period of 3 or 4 years? Again, we're not in a position to advocate, but that we certainly want to provide that as a consideration for council in terms of utility rates. As I've said, we continue to review and update our budget. We obviously have also been impacted by some staff vacancy here and there in terms of the development of the budget, but our staff is working on this very hard, and as I call on them, they respond very well. Capital expenses have generally decreased this year, and I'll point that out, based on what I feel was a very aggressive capital program in FY21. You bought a sweeper, you bought a vac truck. We committed to a fairly extensive paving project on finishing Avenue E, as well as coming over to East 3rd Street. So a lot of those items were built up, and I think we're now going to be sitting in a year where it's okay to not spend quite as much. I think our equipment's in good shape. I think we're still going to have a good paving program, and the needs may not be quite as great as they've seen before. We've incorporated some of your priorities. Certainly we want to hear from you about what other priorities we missed or what we need to add in addition to that. We will have those on a later slide for you to take a look at. We do expect this to be a partnership moving forward. We've done the work to package it, but now it's both of our jobs to try to put together a budget that makes sense, meets your needs and priorities, as well as obviously balances. We have received the initial appraisal roll. I don't have the comparison between the valuation this year versus last year. It has gone up, and we are awaiting, the old terminology of that was the effective rate determination, which is, or they're now calling that the no new tax rate, which is the rate that you collected last year, not including the new development. So when we get that, we should get that hopefully in the next week or so. We can pass that on to you. In terms of the tax rate, the ad valorem rate, I know that's something that's kind of an item that council likes to talk about and beat up, and the community does as well. At least our budget projections don't show us raising any more money from taxes than we took in last year. So we'll kind of go through that. In terms of the budget organization, what we typically give to council is a general budget and then all of our proprietary enterprise funds. So these are a combined budget, or what I will typically refer to as your operating budgets. This is what we ask you to put the stamp of approval on. The general takes care of what your general public services are, less utilities, your public safety, your court, your streets, trash, admin, information technology, planning and building. Proprietary or enterprise funds, in fact, you'll notice this on your utility bill. You know, you pay taxes on your electric side because that is a proprietary or an enterprise fund. We operate that as a business. So those are your other funds that were also included in this operating budget, and that's you know, water, wastewater, electric, but it also includes some other kind of smaller funds, airport, golf, animal shelter. Some non-operating funds, and we've kind of referred to these particularly when we met on our planning session. We have some other funds, some debt service funds that we transfer money to pay some debt on. Economic development, so we've put from time to time money in Fund 22. That's in the event we have an economic development utility extension. Instead of taking it out of the water wastewater fund, we might take it out of the economic development fund if it is indeed for an economic development utility type project. Some of those other funds are previous debt issuances, 62, 63, currently 68, and you can kind of see the funding and balances of those. And I did, just to be clear, and I think to dovetail with Councilman Clark's request for an explanation, those balances are inclusive of the claim on cash. That's a cash held and cash in concentration for that fund, unrestricted and council restricted cash balances. What I don't include in there, for example, is something that's just off limits. For example, our cemetery endowment type fund, or perpetual maintenance fund. That's something that we cannot touch. The HOT is restricted to purpose, and I can see us spending some time at one of our future council meetings talking about projects that we want to fund from HOT. So that's not part of your operating budget, but I think we've got some things that we need to work out in terms of scope, particularly on the hostess house, that'll determine that. So we'll spend some time kind of as a separate budget item just on hotel occupancy tax fund, Fund 40. Any question on kind of how the structure of our budget? Yes, sir?
Excuse me. I just have one on the economic development side. Do you propose to bring that back up to where we started it every year? Is what you try to do is maintain that balance?
Not necessarily. We originally had that, we put about $200,000 into Fund 22, and again, that's just to sit there and keep some sort of balance in that fund. But typically what we've done in the past, which may jive with what council wants us to do or not, but typically that transfer into Fund 22 would only be made if it was needed. So we would assume that we would have a budget line there, but we would only transfer those funds into that if it was needed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's $200,000 and we spent $60,000 out of it this year, or $100,000, you would start back over at $200,000.
Correct. So where are we? And again, I almost didn't want to put in our projected year end, not because it's a negative number, just because there's so many unknowns. You can see we go back a couple of years and kind of take a snapshot. If you take a look at FY 2019, that bottom line number is probably different. Well, I know it's different than the number we presented to you in early 2020 when we closed the books on 2019. The reason that is once our auditors go through the budget, they'll pull out the capital expenditures a lot of times and also and add that into depreciation. Depreciation is going to be in the major account 5600 contingency. So you see in 2019 we have $1.1 million in contingency. In 2020 it's 59. So those numbers will change a little bit depending on auditors' journal entries, but what you budgeted in terms of capital versus what you spent, we try to do an apples to apples comparison at the end of each year. So the fourth quarter financial report that you received previously does not have that correction in it yet. Current budget is about a $31 million budget. Our projected year end is about $800,000 deficit. That could go up or down a little bit. Like I said, there's still some unknowns even with just 2 months to go in our fiscal year. FY 22, we're proposing about or at least starting off with about a $30 million budget. Right now, our expenditures are less than what we anticipate in revenue for about a $275,000 surplus at this point. Just a couple of things about that. Oh, let me see. Oh, by operating fund. So if we go into operating fund, the numbers are the same, but it does give you an idea. So, for example, if you want to look at water wastewater, which is the second bold fund identified there, and you can see our projected year end is a negative as well as our FY 22 proposed. is about an $81,000 deficit. And so that begs the question, is that a consideration for you as you want to take a look at utilities? So some assumptions that we made when we put these numbers together, and again, we consider them reasonably conservative. Our sales tax is budgeted less than what we anticipate receiving by the end of the year, but more than what we budgeted. So it's basically a flat compared to what the actual was, to a little below. Ad valorem, the same. Permitting, the same. And keep in mind, too, that between our sales tax, our ad valorem, and our permitting, that makes up about 12 or 13% of our total budget. It's important, the numbers and the indicators are important, but in terms of the dependence on those funds to balance our budget, it's only really about 12, 13% of our total revenue budget. In terms of personnel and compensation, basically what you see budgeted here is where we are now. It's at our current staffing levels and assuming a full workforce with no increases in compensation. So we're not ready or prepared without some additional input from council to automatically include any compensation, any staffing or personnel additions in terms of numbers of bodies. Just for your information, a 1% increase in compensation is normally going to be about $65,000 to $66,000, and that is a burdened cost. That's all in salary and benefits. If we were to go back, in terms of compensation, your salary and benefits line, the first two lines on your expense, make up about 28% of your total expense budget. This is a sheet that you cannot read on the slide, but I think we've included this in your packet. And we've just kind of found this helpful over the years to give some perspective, particularly if we need to start talking about tax rates, utility rates, and there should be one in your packet. But it gives you an idea. You know, one of the questions that, and again, I tend to be biased about my town, but I try to ask the question, you know, are our residents getting a good value for the taxes they pay, the utility rates they pay, what we do for them, the services that we offer? And, you know, I hope and a lot of this is apples and oranges stuff. I mean, the fact that Horseshoe Bay has a lower tax rate than we do doesn't really mean anything, because their valuation per capita is through the roof. So there's some of that you'll have to weed through, but I think the overall message that this probably says, or I hope it says to you, is that you know, we do provide, I think, a reasonable value for the tax rate as well as our utility costs and the level of services we provide. It's something we like to include for you, and like I said, you don't want to read too much into any one statistic, but I think we try to do, and council tries to do a very good job with the resources that are available. What's included in the numbers that we provided you tonight? Nothing really over the top. We have included SCADA upgrades for water and wastewater and electric. We have 2 police patrol vehicles, a utility pickup for the water wastewater department, a haul trailer, water wastewater. This is nothing particularly new, but year in, year out, we include money in both the water and wastewater fund and the electric fund for extensions. Do have a pretty hefty expense with Hannah Springs Pool. This is something that was identified through the CIP process, and we were told years ago that we would have to replace at some point in its life cycle the liner at Hannah Springs. We still have paving, the splitter box repairs. For those of you that went out to the water and wastewater plant, or the wastewater plant, you saw those splitter boxes. We've maintained about $70,000, $80,000 to rehab those as well. And again, as another item that we need to talk about at some point as a separate agenda item or a separate portion of the budgeting process is what are we doing with Fund 40 and what sort of scope and procurement we go through for Hostess House, Campbell Park Pavilion, Campbell Skate Park, wayfinding, signage, and branding, and that's something that we certainly heard from council. Every year we've got, and again, this is a relatively small amount that we have in our budget. We've sometimes pulled this out and you've reviewed them during one night of presentations, but we've just gotten in the habit of assuming that there's going to be some inclusion to support these entities, the Hill Country Community Action Committee, WCID for dam maintenance and dam upgrade, Fort Hood Defense Alliance, LCHEC, and Christmas on the Creek, which is normally funded out of the hot funds. Councilman?
Do you envision WCID coming back with that 140,000 that they were talking about last year?
I think what I would suggest to council is that ought to be something you should consider in a budget meeting. The legislature did not budget some of those matching funds that were anticipated in this last biennium. But whether we put it aside or whether we give it to them to put aside, I think it would make sense for us to do that again. It also gives us an opportunity to do it on an incremental basis. If we do it over, maybe now we have, if they weren't funded for the next 2 years out of the Texas state budget, maybe we just up that over 4 years, and by the 4th year we're there at that match amount.
I just knew that they were looking at different declarations for the type of dams that we have. Correct. They're important, but I don't think we've ever had to absorb $140,000.
No. And, you know, they do have some balance in their funds. I think the last meeting I was at, they had about 50,000. And I think we're not the sole funding source either. Right. I think the county is considering participation as well. And arguably, we perhaps have the most risk or the most, most at stake, but certainly particularly that dam number 6, I think we've shown you in the past, is something that would make sense to upgrade to high hazard standard. But absolutely, it is a topic that we want to keep on the table. In terms of next steps, we do have departmental presentations scheduled for August 2nd. You're not going to see all departments, but you're going to see your utility departments, IT, finance, utility billing and collection, streets, parks. Yeah, public safety, PD, FD. By the time you give everybody 15 or 20 minutes, you could probably be here till midnight. So we've tried to not give you maybe some of the departments that have fairly straightforward budgets, but we are absolutely open. If you want to hear about library, if you want to hear about a specific area, please let me know, and we'll make sure we get that staff scheduled to come before you. And we've told staff we don't want to leave you out. It's just we also need to be conscious of council's time and what your desires are. The other thing that I think is always helpful is if we hear from council about what topic-related workshops would be helpful. Do you want to sit around a table and talk about utility rates and trying to match our capital and our tank maintenance up with where we need to see our utility rates going? Do you want to talk more about compensation or other items on the list? Do you want to talk about fees and that sort of thing, or ways that we can cut other areas? But we've done this differently from year to year. One year we've said, okay, we're going to spend some time and talk just about utility rates. And other years we've said, no, we're going to talk about one other specific area of the budget. We've got we can absolutely give you as much detail as you would like, but we also, it's very important to us, and I've told my staff this, we've also got to give you perspective. What do these numbers mean? and what do these numbers do in terms of the services you want delivered and the capital priorities that you set. So, you know, like I said, we wrap it up and bring it to you, and now it's time to start working together to make sure that we've got in there what you want as well as what we are able to afford with the resources that are available. You have, and again, so you've got some regular sized stuff you don't have to squint at in your packet. If you certainly have any questions on that, like I said, Yvonne and I have some work to do on this. We want to make sure that what we've given you is as sharp as it can, and typically we may bring you something back next week that's, you know, a $325,000 surplus, or we may bring you something back next week that says, hey, this is really a $250,000 surplus. But we always want to at least start with, we're not going to bring you a $2 million project, a problem, or anything like that. I've had years where we've looked at the budget and we're $2 million off, and I said, no, we're not taking this to council. We've got to fix this first, and then we'll let council tell us how they want to do it.
And we appreciate that.
I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know I've just basically thrown this out to you, but I look for your comments about what you'd like to see next. You can either do that, hopefully, as council as a whole, make those comments, or if I can help you individually, you can certainly let me know.
Have we set any specific dates other than August 2nd?
No. The second is the next, of course, next Monday will be your first budget workshop. Last year, it's funny, I was looking last year, and we actually did it on August 3rd. We did the departmental presentation, so we're going to be doing it roughly at the same time.
Do you have some other suggestions? I'm trying to put my calendar together for August.
Oh, in terms of dates?
Yes.
I would defer to council on that. I think.
I know you put some in a email to us.
Yes. I think do we have 5 Mondays in August? You could either do certainly one in between the meetings, your 2 August meetings, and I think there may be an extra Monday at the end of August too. And we don't have to necessarily meet on Monday nights. We could meet whenever. The 16th or the 30th. We don't have council meetings if Monday is generally convenient for council.
I just think this is going to be a tough budget cycle, and I think we need to spend as much time as we can, possibly, especially before Kathy gets back into school.
Kathy is back in school, so we don't need to worry about.
So we have to work around her schedule as well.
So we are meeting Monday, aren't we? Wasn't it at 5?
Yes.
Okay.
At 5 o'clock, yeah.
So I think after we hear from the department heads, it might be a little easier for us to decide how many more meetings we will need, and at that point, work up something. As far as dates, are you concerned about a particular date?
No, I just am trying to put things together with doctor's appointments and everything else, so.
Well, sort of plan on those Mondays that we don't have council meetings, and we can certainly make use of those. I think everybody would be agreeable to that.
Councilmember Keeney, is Monday generally in the evenings okay?
That's good with me. I'll work around it.
I think, you know, and I think particularly around some of the tank maintenance we're looking at with Kempner, my quick math seems to, I think that could impact, you know, if we paid for it just through rates, could impact our customers between $4 and $7 a month. And there's certainly options out there, but we'd want to sit around a table and say, okay, we've got some joint use facility funds here, we've got some perhaps CARES funds here, and how do we kind of mix that up so there's not as much of an impact to our customers?
Do we know at this point on the hot funds, these proposed projects, do we have any kind of estimated cost?
Well, I think you've heard and this is what staff heard, is that Hostess House was probably the most important. So I think that's where I would start in terms of what scope do you want to undertake for the Hostess House. And then, you know, the pavilion is certainly not the biggest number that you have, so maybe that's some low-hanging fruit. But again, we need to sit down as a council and say, this is how we want to divvy up what we have, and if we don't have enough, what are some options? Yeah,
Right.
that's,
Well, I think one thing that concerned me was, I heard some numbers tossed around about a skate park.
you bet.
And when you look at $500,000 with all the other priorities we have, and the lady that approached us originally that came here is moving out of town in August. I found that out yesterday. So I don't know, I don't know how strong everybody is still to move on that, but I would be shocked if we got approval at a $400,000 or $500,000 budget.
Again, that's, council have to chew on that and let us know what you would like to do. And like I said, I think one of the roles of staff is to say, here are some options, and hopefully we can do that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Penley, is the council workshop session, and I'm hearing from several that it might be beneficial for us to hold off on meeting until after September, just to give everybody time to get through the budget and then have some breathing space. So if you find that that's okay, maybe.
Those were my comments, Mayor,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Everybody
Thank you.
okay with that? Thank you. So we'll go on to discussion and presentation regarding the advisory board annual renewals and vacancies.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll try to be relatively quick unless you'll have questions for me, but I try to do this every year. I put together a PowerPoint, and it's pretty much the same. I just kind of update it. I feel it's important so everybody understands what each board represents, the members that are on there, what type of members they have. Just like my construction board, you have to be specific to a trade. So I just thought that would be helpful for y'all to see. This is just basically just something that I do to kind of market and start recruiting for people to start applying for any type of vacancies or anybody who wants to renew or anybody who has an interest. This right here just goes through all of them, and I won't read them all to you, but it just kind of describes all of the different boards that we have. It kind of talks about the vacancies that we may or may not have, but at this point I don't know specific numbers because I haven't got the applications back for those that are expiring.
Good.
But this kind of goes through all that with you, and it just kind of gives you a rough description on each of the different boards. And then also, like if they have to be a city resident versus a county resident, if they have to own property, live in the ETJ, there's certain requirements that have to be met as well, especially if y'all are recruiting for members to be a part of specific boards. So that's what this kind of represents. Do y'all have any questions about this? Okay, because I try to keep it simple and it's the same every year, so it's kind of something for y'all familiar with.
Lots of good information. Thank you, Becky.
You're welcome.
Anyone have any questions?
Monica, you want to pull up the next one? I have a few more things, sorry. The other two items that I added in here were two other, basically, spreadsheets, if you will. One of them shows the actual board renewals, those on each board who is terms up and is going to be able to be renewed if they choose to. And then I also have the board member terms of how long they've been there. It's something that kind of we started looking at about a year ago about those members who have been on various boards for, 10, 15, 20 years, or those that have only been on for a few years. This kind of gives us an opportunity to look and see, are they just renewing because nobody else wants to? Are they really passionate about those boards? What are they providing? What value is being added? So we can kind of look at it because it's up to y'all to appoint them for another term. Some of them are 2-year terms, some of them are 3-year terms. Like my airport board is 5 years, so it just kind of varies by the different boards. I also kind of wrote on here at the very bottom, it kind of displays what the requirements are. So like my airport board, you have to be a licensed pilot to be on that board. With my construction board, like I stated before, those are specific to a trade, whether you're a contractor, mechanical, electrical, plumber, things of that nature. And then the next page that I have in there in your packet will show your absenteeism. And this is something that the previous council members over the last few years have had an interest in, just to see how frequent board members are absent. Just kind of gives you an eye. So if we keep, reappointing the same member and they're never present at the board, it's kind of not doing us any good. So this is just something for y'all to kind of get warmed up to. Probably probably the next meeting, I'll probably start bringing more information to you. And then, of course, at the end of September is when I bring those interested applicants who want to be reappointed to boards or be added to boards who are no longer there.
Along with other applications, right?
Yes, ma'am, and I'll bring them all to you.
All right, any questions, concerns? Thanks, Becky.
You're welcome.
Next item is any discussion regarding any other item on the regular agenda. Anyone have any questions? I think we'll adjourn the workshop session. I think we'd ask someone wanted to take maybe a 5-10 minute break in between. Five? Let's take a 5-minute break if we can. We got a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Let's be back in 5 minutes. Amen.
Please join me in the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Next item is presentations and proclamations. We do have a presentation tonight. We have the new Misty Talbert Community Champion. She's back, okay. This is for Sammy Saucedo. For the last 3 years that I have resided in Lampasas, I've seen Sam work countless events. She volunteers her time to the chamber and works with the rodeo committee. She's volunteered her time to random events people need help with, such as parties, churches, schools, etc. She runs the concession stands during game days. She makes pictures of the children during practices and games and shares them with family and friends. She works with the Boy Scouts and gets them set up for volunteer work. I see her give all her time to our community, and I personally feel she should get an award to be recognized. This community can always count on her, and I know there are hundreds of other people in this community that would agree with me. Thank you. This was nominated by Aaron Porter, Sammy. Next item is public hearing, citizen comments. 1.1, citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the city council on a matter not included on the agenda may do so at this time. The city council may not deliberate on items presented under this agenda item. I think we had a person when they've decided not to stay. Anyone else? Moving on, we have 1.2, citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the city council on a matter that is included on the agenda may do so at this time. I don't see anyone. 2.0 minutes. 2.1, discussion and possible action concerning the approval of the city council workshop session held on July 7th, 2021.
I didn't see any corrections. Recommend approval.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 2.2, discussion and possible action concerning approval of minutes of the regular meeting on July 12th, 2021.
I didn't see any corrections. Again, recommend approval.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 3.0, consent agenda. 3.1, discussion and possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 10, Animal Code, Article 3, Livestock Sections 10 through 145, Sections 10 through 175 of the Lampasas Code of Ordinances.
Recommend approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is department reports, but I believe we heard from the Parks Department at our last meeting, so we will continue on to the city manager's operational report. Thank you, Finley. Next item is mayor's comments. I don't really have any, except I would like to thank several of the council members for coming forward with some questions and learning more about what our discussions were about tonight, so I appreciate that. We have new business, no unfinished business, so we have new business, 7.1. Discussion and possible action regarding the first reading of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lampasas approving the resolution of the board members of the Lampasas Economic Development Corporation, authorizing an economic development project and a loan in the amount not to exceed $1.5 million, a sales tax remittance agreement between the city and the corporation, resolving either matters incident and related to the loan, and the authority of the mayor to execute on behalf of the city a general certificate of the city and the sales tax remittance agreement.
It was off. Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah. Good evening. This is what we discussed in workshop, and we're just seeking approval for the first reading of this resolution for the economic development project that is the business park, phase 1, as well as the loan to develop the phase 1 of the business park.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7.2, discussion and acceptance of the Lampasas County Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center budget, 21-22 budget.
Before I come to you with the approval, I just want to address what we talked about in workshop just a little bit, and let you know that next meeting, that I will be the first council meeting in August, I'll be coming regarding the agreement, and I asked that the membership benefits be pulled up tonight, but I feel it's probably more important to express and discuss the agreement between the two of us, two parties, the Visitor Center and Chamber and the City of Lampasas, in the next meeting. So we will go ahead and have that in your packet next time around. So just wanted to address that.
Okay. A motion?
Mayor, may I ask that we table this until the next meeting, until we have that discussion?
I don't see any reason to. Is there a reason not to?
Fiscal year. So I think as long as you do it sometime in August or even September, you could. And certainly I don't want to put words into Melissa's mouth either, but if the chamber has a preference, I would obviously think that would be a consideration for council as well.
Anyone else have a objection?
Is this in discussion of the agreement as it pertains to the administrative line item?
If nobody else, then I'll withdraw that.
If it's an understanding issue, we can definitely table it. However,
Help me to understand that, Randy. What are you asking?
I had asked that we table it until the next meeting.
I think his concern was with the increase in salary, the 3% salary increase.
I just am a little uncomfortable with that at this point.
It won't really impact anything as I see it, but
It's not the amount of money, it's more the percentage perception.
Was the 3% increase that was voted on by your board and paid for by your board, it doesn't have anything to do with what the city's paying toward the amount, is that correct?
correct. It's a $5,000 increase, which with a 40% from the city.
we're only paying our portion of the visitor
The
center.
1,800.
I understand that.
And when was the last time that there was
We
a raise?
really
Say 3
can't
years?
discuss it until we get a motion. If I could get a
sorry.
motion, we can discuss it.
I'll make the motion of approval for the sake of discussion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so now we can discuss it.
So, and how long has it been?
Since I started, I mean, I just started with an increase. Well, I've never had an increase since I started in 2018.
So 3 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes, sir.
I
And And it was discussed amongst my board in regards to the fact that I would have to find the other part of the raise within the chamber budget.
Is that pretty consistent with if you got just a cost of living each year increase?
Well,
No.
no. No,
That's a four.
but technically, I could have come to council for an increase each time I've presented the budget the last 3 times, so.
I am not opposed to giving necessarily a raise. I just wanted the context of the 3% just makes me a little nervous because I'm unaware of what we can do with staff at this point.
I agree with you, Randy. That was my thing. Until we decide where we're at with staff, maybe a little premature. I don't know.
As far as city staff, is that what,
With city staff, yes.
okay.
We
I
haven't
just
got to that point yet.
clarifying
But we
that.
will have, by the time it would need to be used for the approval of your budget, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So you're okay with approving her budget?
I'm okay with approving the budget. Yeah,
Okay.
let's just leave it at that and go.
So, other questions? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Oh,
2 opposed, 5 for. And we will see you next
Yes,
meeting.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am, and we will have a breakdown of the agreement. It'll be a little bit more clear, I believe. I don't know if it'll answer that question, but hopefully it will, and hopefully we'll be at a point where the city budget will be a little bit more clarified
Right.
as well. Thank you.
Next item, 7.3, discussion and possible action regarding an emergency roof repair for the Lampasas Police Department.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sammy couldn't be here this evening, and I've been working with her on this project, so I'm going to present on her behalf. Basically, the police department was having some issues with the leak in their roof or inside their building, and so they went several avenues. They went mechanical, plumbing, trying to figure out exactly where the leak came from. So during this type of an assessment they did, they actually decided they would get a roof assessment as well to try to see if maybe the roof was leaking or if that was part of the faulty leak that they had in their building. So come to find out that there was some roof damage done, there was some hail damage done, there was some from the storm, and it's over 20 years, and it's this wear and tear. It was time for it to be replaced. So with that being said, I reached out to TML, which is our insurance carrier, to see what they thought about getting me an assessment, because I know with roofs they're kind of iffy of what they'll cover, based on depreciation, they won't give you the full value, et cetera. But I thought it was worth a shot for them to come out and see and give me an assessment on the roof. So they came out and said, yes, they will cover it. They've already sent me a check for $49,000 to cover the roof. However, because of the dollar amount on the 2 initial estimates that we received, one was like $49,000 and one was like $55,000. So based on our purchasing policy, if it's over $50,000, then we have to get sealed bids. So during the sealed bid process, we were trying to get all our ducks in a row and getting it all in the newspaper, getting it advertised. The actual building interior of the roof started leaking, which made it more of a emergency repair versus just, it would be nice to get it done and get it corrected because there's a deficiency. So with that being said, I reached out to our council to try to see, what our attorney advised as far as in our personnel policy, our purchasing policy, with it being an emergency, how we can go about that without doing a sealed competitive bid because it would take longer, and we're trying to expedite the process. So in this agenda cover, you'll see there's 2 options. One is going to be the calamity based on local government code, to where it's going to, it has the public property that is being damaged and it's emergency repair, that we can cover it by doing it the way that we're doing it now versus having a sealed bid. So in the motion, if you'll just motion that, if you are in agreement for it, I would appreciate it, to where we can cover it through TML, local government code, and with what our purchasing policy reflects, to get this corrected expediently.
So move.
Just reference these things when you make the motion.
With the calamity exception?
Second.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor?
aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
7.4, discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of Misty Talbert as president of the EDC.
It's me again. As you know, I do all the board appointments, so I'm just going to do LADC as well. As you know, that Charlie Prattis has resigned from the LADC committee, and he was the president. So at this time, at the last board meeting, we decided that we wanted to get their opinion as far as who they wanted to nominate as for their next president. They voted for, and they all were unanimous to do for Misty Talbert. So that's what I'm asking you to this evening, to appoint Misty Talbert as the president of the LADC board.
A motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of Sid Ball to the Lampasas Economic Board Corporation to fill the vacancy left by Charlie Prattis.
Mayor and Council, again, we had a vacancy on the board. We did get an application from Sid Ball. He has presided on this board before, so he is familiar with the rules and regulations of the LADC committee. It was presented on July 21st to the EDC board. They did recommend that we reappoint him to the board, and that we're asking for you to do the same this evening.
Recommend
moved.
approval.
Second.
Who's second?
I got Kenny and I got Morris.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
So could I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's go home.